In the net tonight, Benjamin Woolley gets into top gear to test drive the latest developments for computing on the move. How Bulgarian programmers are gearing up to invade the West. In our weekly hot list, comedian Richard Herring hunts for humor on the World Wide Web. And from the US, a special report on icons and interfaces.
They're hidden everywhere, along with biomagnetic traps and disruptor snares.
There are people to see, meetings to make, deals to strike. Some pretty smart. Like this watch, for example. It may look like the sort of thing you get free with Tiger tokens, but this is in fact a highly sophisticated time management device. By pointing this little magic eye at the computer screen, I can upload my day's appointments to ensure that they're literally to hand whenever I need them.
It's all a bit James Bond-like, and you sometimes wish Q would come along and explain how it all works, but there's a serious point to it.
This growing assortment of fancy gadgetry is changing the nature of employment, life even. No longer will you go to work, work will come to you.
Like cars, the great promise of information technology is that it will set us free. In the future, we will be computing, not commuting. No more desk, no more 9 to 5, no more you don't have to be mad to work here but it helps. Just these smooth, sleek machines with their elegant interfaces and silky bodywork. And ahead, the open information superhighway.
Ben, CJ, usual producer's panic call. I need that script ASAP. I've got an 11 o'clock with the editor and he wants to talk about it before the 2:30 production conference.
The technology that promises to bring us this liberation is already a familiar sight on the Intercity and M25, and it's becoming ever more sophisticated.
This is a GSM mobile phone. It's brand new and digital, which means you get a clearer signal and you can use it anywhere in Europe. And you can connect it to your laptop computer using one of these data cards, which means that wherever you are, be it the A3 from London to Portsmouth or the Autobahn from Berlin to Hamburg, you can connect your computer into the telephone system and exchange data.
For example, you can use your word processor effectively to print your document direct to any fax on the end of a phone line.
Got the script, it's wonderful. Just one little thing, we need a location. See if you can find something for me, sweetie. Don't be late for the production meeting, 2:30 sharp.
And you're not confined to sending dull old faxes. You can connect direct into a company's network, do anything that anyone does on an office computer, if a bit slower, communicate with colleagues, fetch files, exchange electronic mail, even send pictures. This is just a beginning. Up there in the sky is a gathering flock of satellites, watching you, showering you in signals. Companies like Motorola are promising to create a new generation of satellite phones with global coverage. Soon you could find that no matter where you are, your phone calls and email messages will track you down, just as surely as a tax demand or Reader's Digest prize draw offer.
You can already use satellites to track yourself down. This innocuous-looking little black box is in fact a transceiver for a global positioning system. You simply bung it on your roof and it'll start to hunt you down.
Originally developed to help tank drivers find their way around the deserts of Kuwait, it can now be linked to a laptop and used to navigate the home counties. The little icon represents your car, and together with a special map reading program, you can use it to plot the most efficient route to your destination. However, GPS is not just about giving you the power to keep track of yourself. A less attractive application is its use by others who want to keep track of you.
You're obviously not going to make the start of the production meeting. You'll have to email your input direct to the co-producers in New York.
The ultimate dream of mobile computing is that all these technologies, the satellites, the global networking systems, the email, the laptops and palm tops, will combine to offer a whole new order of communication, all of it channeled through a light, smart, simple device that you barely notice having on you.
They call them Personal Digital Assistants, or PDAs for short, and there have already been several stabs at building them. The most successful tend to be the least ambitious, something like this, a sort of portable data wallet. You can use it to store the information you need when you're out, things like figures, addresses, notes. A full-blown PDA, something like this, is a little too grandiose for its own good. It's hard to know what you can do with it that you couldn't do with a more modest version, or, perish the thought, pen and paper. Still, it's very clever. It can read your handwriting, and you can beam information to other PDAs via an inbuilt infrared ray gun. There's no question, it's lovely stuff, but it'll all have to go back, along with the car.
The problem is that PDAs are still really toys, and eye-wateringly expensive ones. They're dream machines that remain unfulfilled. So let's dream a little. What would a truly personal portable computing device be like?
That's the question British Telecom's research department tried to answer with this. It's the mobile communicator of the future. It's like a wristwatch on steroids. There's a keypad, of course, a pull-out touchpad, and a pop-up screen, which you can use to show your computer desktop or video conversations. What's this device actually do?
It's a mobile phone, it's a computer, it's a healthcare system. And perhaps if we look backwards, it's a little bit like the story of the transition of the carriage clock of 300 years ago, which eventually became a wristwatch. Now, that office that you go to, that office that you carry in your briefcase, has now made the same transition to become body furniture.
How are things like this going to change the future?
The future is about doing more with less, more work with fewer people, achieving more in a given lifetime. When am I not able to work? When I'm away from my office, or when my portable office is not plugged in. The downtime in my life is when I'm driving my car, walking in the street, or not being online. I have to be online more. I have to be able to make more use of the time that I have.
How real is all this sort of stuff?
What you're seeing now is a simulation of a situation that will be possible in about 5 years. All the technology to do what we're actually doing right now exists. All that is required is its integration, its bringing together, its marketing and its selling.
Well, that's the dream. Back in the real world, there are more mundane issues to consider. For example, packing several £1000s worth of highly portable gear in your glove compartment means that you daren't ever leave your car. Then there's the batteries, those blasted batteries. They're made of lead, you need a brick is hod to hump them around, and they keep running out. For the mobile worker, searching for a PowerPoint can be as desperate as searching for a public loo.
But these, we're told, are just technicalities. One day, batteries will last, everyone will be wired, and there'll be adequate all-risks insurance cover. There are, though, problems that could prove harder to crack. Being in constant contact with work can mean there's no escaping it, at least if you're lucky enough to have it. You can turn your cell phone off, leave your email unread, but you don't know what you're missing. A job, some crucial information, an important meeting.
The information superhighway is no less frustrating than the M25. It too has its rush hours, road closures and contraflows. One French philosopher, describing the age we live in, talked about the ecstasy of communication. Well, it can be agony too.
Not many people would put Bulgaria on their list of up-and-coming economies. It's not the place you'd expect to find a refugee from Silicon Valley combining forces with a former diplomat. But from a converted hotel in Sofia, a Bulgarian software company is out to take on the world.
Crate Bear was started as I would say, as an interesting idea, which was put into being as a company. The originality of the idea was that we will produce code software in Bulgaria, which was then going to be sold on the US consumer market. This is something that I don't think anyone else has ever attempted or has anyone ever thought of.
Great Bear certainly sounds American, and it does have a headquarters and marketing outfit in Moraga, California. But the company's success depends on its Bulgarian programmers producing software that will sell in the most demanding market in the world.
What we do here in Sofia is we take the specifications written by the product managers for the US market, and we do the basic coding of the products here. This is actually the production factory segment of the entire process.
We began with, I wouldn't say simpler products, but things that were more, one would expect, easier to market. And that was, we were transforming existing textbooks or reference books onto diskettes, and which were then to be used in computers.
With an economy in a state of near collapse, Bulgarian wages are only a fifth of those in California. But offshore programming using cheap labor to write software is widespread. What makes Bulgaria different?
Bulgaria was actually the largest manufacturer of computers and computer technology in the former Comecon area. It used to supply over 50% of all the computers that were used in the Comecon area, including the former Soviet Union.
We started building our first Bulgarian computer in 1961, and it was finished in 1963. It was a very primitive computer of all, but it was the basis of bringing together mathematicians and engineers to start building such a monster in these days, a big one. I was in this group as a mathematician, and I make the logical structure of this computer, which I think was very original.
But independence proved impossible, so the early Bulgarian programmers turned to Soviet mainframes like the massive, but to our minds puny, Minsk II.
Well, Minsk II actually was a computer which was which had only 8K words of main memory. At that time, as an external memory, it used only magnetic tapes. There were no magnetic disk drives. For the time being, it was a more or less advanced computer, and computers of this type were used in the Russian space program at that time.
In the late 60s, the Bulgarians decided to become the dominant computer manufacturer in the Eastern Bloc. No longer relying on Soviet machines, they began to copy Western designs, a process coyly known as reverse engineering.
The essence of the program was to start making IBM-compatible computers for a certain period of time until the Soviet and the Eastern Bloc countries reached the level of the West.
By 1989, software and hardware accounted for 10% of the Bulgarian economy. Huge factories were churning out thousands of unauthorized IBM and VAX mini-computers and tens of thousands of PC and Apple clones. But now these factories lie almost idle, producing a few electronic cash registers. The collapse of the Soviet Union and the Comecon system of barter trade left Bulgarian industry exposed to the free market.
After the totalitarian regimes broke down at once like a domino, all this system was completely destroyed. And everybody was looking to buy from more advanced industries in the West. American cigarettes was everywhere. The Bulgarian cigarettes are not solved. The same with the computers.
The collapse of manufacturing meant unemployment for the highly skilled workforce, an ideal recruiting ground for a new software company like Great Bear. But how did the programmers adjust to the move from the state sector to a small private company?
It was definitely a cultural, I wouldn't say a shock. Programmers in Bulgaria were used to produce software which was mostly intended for industrial purposes. What we're doing here is simpler from that point of view, but the quality level, the factor of timing, the factor, what the market demands, these were things which were not really known.
But the culture shock didn't end there. Great Bear's CD-ROMs are aimed at the US consumer market, and with their latest product, that means making something as Bulgarian as motherhood and apple pie.
He ran for president with a clear vision of America and of the American dream.
Through this golden door, under the gaze of that mother of exiles, has come millions of men and women.
In 1947, the Truman Doctrine was introduced to protect free countries from the expansionist Soviet Union. It was to be the basis of American foreign policy for the next 40 years.
We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method.
But didn't anyone find this strange? The one-time evil empire selling America its own history.
Correct.
Everybody thought it was sort of ironic, but what it comes down to is basic coding. You know, which tools to use? How do we make a multimedia title? Are we using the latest and greatest technology to do this? And so once we strip away those social aspects of the product or the design issues of the product, I think you'll find a lot of the software products are all universal.
In an attempt to show programmers are also the same all over the world, Les introduced the Silicon Valley tradition of a Friday afternoon beer bash to Great Bear, although some Bulgarian habits might not go down too well in California. But just how good are the Great Bear team?
In terms of the corporate culture, in terms of developing software, I'd stack the programming group here up against anybody in the world. It's just like what I find in the Silicon Valley.
Hello, I'm Richard Herring from off of TV's Fist of Fun. Well, yeah, Fist of Fun, we've been working on the radio, me and Stuart Lee, for about 5 years. And Fist of Fun was our first major Radio 1 FM project. And then it went so well on the radio that they decided to give us a television series as well. It was up against Pig Practice. You may have seen Pig Practice. It was quite good. Right, so I'm going to have a look at some other comedy to see if the space comedians are going to overtake my Earth job. This is Jay's Comedy Club, a vast repository of humour, apparently. This is the light bulb jokes page, which is, I really don't like jokes at all, which is, you know, obviously a handicap in the profession, but these are light bulb jokes, and this is compiled by a man who is obsessed with collecting every light bulb joke there is in the world. It's rather like Simon Quinlake from our show. Oh dear. How many Englishmen does it take to change the light bulb? What do you mean change it? It's a perfectly good bloody bulb. We've had it for 1,000 years and it's worked just fine. Brit Comedy Digest. The San Francisco Bay Area Red Dwarf fans meet. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful world we live in. 12 San Francisco Bay Area red dwarfians gathered together on Sunday, March 26th. I want to see this Goodies Lost episode, right? Recently, the BBC was archiving its video library when lost Goodies footage was discovered. There were scenes from the Big Bunny episode which apparently didn't make the final cut. That's not an episode lost, is it? That's just a bit of script that's been cut out. This is the Monty Python team screwing around. It isn't what I hoped, unfortunately. But there they are. There's Eric Idle. He's funny. And that is a very amusing hat that John Cleese is wearing there. In 10 years' time, this will have replaced me, this. There won't be a fan. This will just be telling jokes, doing sketches, this computer in a variety of different amusing costumes, in a variety of different places. So I shouldn't knock it, because television is dead, let's face it.
Here we are, on location again. Inside a computer, again. I've been trying for quite some time to find a book I was looking at before, but it seems to have vanished. And now I have no idea how I can get out of here. There's this map, but it's completely useless from what I can see. Doesn't say where anything is. Still less how to get there from here. And they call this a game. That seems to be an excuse for anything baffling or frustrating. I call it bad design. Sometimes it looks like a real space. Other times it just doesn't. The fact is, the space inside a computer is nothing like real space. And it's making me feel seasick. Oh God, let me out of here. It's hard enough finding stuff just in the box on my desk. But once you start getting hooked into the net, then the real problems start. It's endless. It's supposed to give you access to everything. It seems to end up being the same as nothing. Doesn't help that it's all text. Our brains remember images much more easily, hence the power of brand names. That's also the point of the Mac interface. Up to a point, but one layer deep you're back to reams of words. Where on earth was that book? I can sort of visualize where I saw it last. Somewhere in the old analog version of the external memory source. That thing we used to call a library. Somehow it looks dull compared to last time I saw it. Guess this was rendered on a computer. Computers like things neat and flat. This is getting better. Human eyes and brains can use loads of information, often more than we're aware of consciously. All these little grainy details are valuable sorting material to distinguish one thing from another. Here's the library's online catalogue. More reams of text. It all looks the same to me. There are dozens of similar subject lists. There are over 300 books in this one list. There are 31 million books altogether. Here's 2 apparently identical references, and all it says about the pictures is plates. I would point out that this is a mistake no computer would pick up. It would just file it in the wrong place and lose the book forever. Maybe I'll have more luck with the other catalogue. Here things aren't at all neat. They're grimy, they're messy, they're dog-eared. But that's the point. All these different typefaces and handwritten notes are more information about the age, the relevance, the kind of book it is. Now I'm getting somewhere. I know at once what I'm dealing with here, but I've no idea how I'd explain it to a computer. Something else that I get from being here, but I don't get from any online database, is the shape and size of it, and where I am in relation to everything else. In a space like this, I can use a diagram. And since I'm in completely the wrong library, this time, thank goodness, I can just leave. Before computers, library cards, or indeed libraries, people had to store all they knew in their heads. They'd build an imaginary space, holding everything they wanted to recall, and they'd fill it with memorable objects, each representing a whole chunk of different stories or arguments. Not mountains of text, but the essence of it. Memory works that way. We remember what's important to us. A patchwork quilt can store whole lifetimes compressed into bits of cloth. One phrase of a pop song can recall a whole summer. That's how we can easily get access to a whole lifetime's experience. And that's how I remember what I need to say to you now. Something about it got inside my head, just like this did. Imagine asking your computer to bring you everything that most excited it this week. Forgetting is a pretty useful filter as well, though. If I remembered everything, it would be the same as remembering nothing. Oh, here's that book. Paintings used to be read like this, as treasure houses of important ideas and stories. Crystal for virginal purity, coral for spilled blood. There's a crook here for a shepherd of souls, and 3 gold balls to buy a respectable marriage. They're sort of like icons on a computer screen, each with a whole file of meaning behind it. And paintings can express things in lots of ways. A person can be a diagram of the shape of the world. The past and the future can share the same space. Gods and humans, spirit and material. You could do all this on a computer too, but for the moment it seems to be back to reading labels. Unless this looks different. Oh dear.
For more information about Internet access providers and details of a BBC educational video about the Internet, send a large stamped addressed envelope to The Net, PO Box 7, London W5 2GQ. Next week in The Net, Benjamin Woolley evaluates edutainment software. Intelligent agents, what will they do for you? And how sim games could rewrite the laws of economics. And finally from The Net.
We are offering a new service called the Laser Suit. We try on a block suit, which is the nearest fitting to them, and then we have a very vast amount of alterations that we can carry out. We key in the information into the Minitel, it's transmitted to Strasbourg, where the suit is cut out by a laser beam. The cost of a suit on this system is approximately a half to a third of the cost of an in-house bespoke suit.